Good evening and welcome to the public meeting for the zoning bylaw amendment application for the property known as 174 Main Street East. Before we begin, I would like to provide the land acknowledgement. Niagara Region and Grimsby are situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendoronk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara and town of Grimsby stands with all Indigenous people, past, present, and in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. The premise of this public meeting is to provide the opportunity for the public to provide input on the proposed application. I would like to stress that there have been no decisions or recommendations made by council or planning staff on these applications. A previous open house was held for this application on Monday, March 28, 2022. This meeting is conducted in accordance with the town's procedural bylaw. All participants are asked to conduct themselves with decorum and respect and provide the opportunity for all members of the public to express their opinion in an environment of tolerance on all points of view and free of intimidation. The intent is to create a venue to encourage people to participate in the process and provide their input. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Council of the Town of Grimsby to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Grimsby before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is adopted, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Grimsby before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is adopted, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. With us this evening is Diana Morris, T. Johns Consulting, and Kevin Antonides. Planning staff in attendance, Adam Gignac, Planner, Walter Basic, Assistant Director of Planner. Tonight we will start with staff providing a brief presentation outlining the process and the application. Next, the consultant team will provide an overview of the proposal, and that will be followed by an opportunity for you to ask questions. If you have not already done so, please ensure you have signed in so that you will be informed of future meetings on this proposal. As we navigate the virtual public meeting, we ask all participants for your patience. Each participant will be called in order and will be provided 10 minutes to speak. Each presenter may speak only once. If you hear your comment presented by someone else, please do not duplicate the remarks. All of the comments are being recorded and will be taken into consideration. When you are called, we ask that you state your name and address. Persons addressing council shall confine their remarks to the business at hand and shall direct their comments or questions to the chair. Staff are taking notes of all the questions asked this evening. At the end of the delegations, the consultant will be asked to respond to all the questions and comments raised. If you feel your questions have not been responded to this evening, you can email our planning department at planning@grimsby.ca. Adam, go ahead with the presentation. Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Peter, if you could throw up my slides, please. Thank you. So good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Gignac, and I'm a planner that's working for the town. I just want to thank you all for taking the time out of your schedules to come tonight. And the project we'll be discussing is a zoning bylaw amendment that is being proposed at 174 Main Street East. So just to begin this public meeting, I'll be going through a brief presentation, providing all of you with some insight into the process of this application. And to briefly introduce this application itself, including what's planned for the site, though I'll leave most of that to Diana. So we have Diana Morris here from T. Johns Consulting and Kevin Antonides here to provide some other greater details about the application. And then after their presentations, there will be time to ask some questions or provide any comments or concerns that you may have about the application.
Thank you, Adam. Go ahead, Diana. Good evening. Oh, sorry, you're not finished yet. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not good. Sorry. So just to go over the purpose of the meeting tonight, we would like to provide you all with an overview of the planning process for these types of applications. So this includes the process from the start to the finish and where exactly the town is in the process. An overview of the policy and regulatory framework is going to be provided, including some of the relevant official plan policies that are in place at the site. Ms. Morris will provide you with some of the additional details about the proposal, and we are here to answer some questions that you may have and gather some feedback. Comments from some of the other agencies have been circulated, or the agencies have been circulated for feedback and have been included in the staff recommendation report. So all feedback is going to be taken into consideration and identify any potential revisions that may be needed. Go ahead, Peter. I think we're a slide ahead. Okay, so under the Planning Act, authority is provided to submit applications for development plans that may not meet the current official plan. Or sorry, Peter, I think we're a couple slides ahead. That one. Thank you. So authority is provided to submit applications for development plans that may not meet the current official plan or zoning bylaw. So in this case, the zoning bylaw requirements cannot be met, so a zoning bylaw amendment is required in this case. The town's role in this is to process these applications that come in. These applications are only able to amend the official plan or zoning bylaw if it is deemed that the proposed changes comply with the overall intent of the official plan, and the result of these changes is development that is compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods. So this is just a flow chart of the major milestones in the planning process. So an application for a zoning bylaw amendment begins with a pre-consultation meeting with town staff and any relevant agencies, which includes but is not limited to the Niagara Escarpment Commission, the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, the Region of Niagara, various town departments, etc. So this meeting outlines the requirements an applicant would need to submit for a submission. So once an application is ready, the applicant would submit the required documents and fees to the town for the town to review for completion. Upon the application being deemed complete, a notice is sent out and agencies are asked for comments. The public's also able to provide comments at this time. For this application, any documents related to the proposal are posted on the current planning applications page of the town's website, and any notices for any public meetings are also posted at that location. So we are currently at the public meeting stage, which is another opportunity for comments to be provided about the application. So at this stage, initial agency and public comments have been made. The previous open house was held on March 28th, 2022, which was the first opportunity to provide comments. So any revisions that would be necessary to address any of the concerns from town staff or members of the public would be made if there are any concerns. And after the public meeting, if all of the concerns are believed to have been met, staff will prepare a recommendation report for council regarding the application, and a decision on the application would be made at a future council meeting with the opportunity to appeal the decision afterwards. So the planning process is an open process and it allows the public to have a say in the process. So the public meeting is another opportunity to give your opinion on this application. So you can write a letter or email to the planning department to provide comments. The email is planning@grimsby.ca. You can also send a copy of your letter or email to your councilors as an alternative. And to stay informed about this application, you're invited to provide your mailing address to the planning department. And by doing so, you would receive notice of future meetings, information on how to obtain a staff report, information about speaking in front of the committee, and information on how a decision of the application can be appealed. So just moving on to the proposal briefly, this slide is a concept plan of the site. So the application for the zoning bylaw amendment is to allow the additional permitted use of the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital Foundation office to be on the site with within the existing single detached dwelling. So no changes to the site itself are proposed, and the office space is used to accommodate be 3.5 employees. So just to briefly go over the official plan policies, the official plan designates 174 Main Street East as low-density residential area. So the policies for this designation are located in section 3.4.2 of the official plan. This designation permits a mixture of residential uses, including single-detached and semi-detached dwellings, as well as community facilities. It's considered a stable residential neighborhood, but does allow for limited development, evolution, and rejuvenation. And finally, just to go over the zoning briefly, the current zoning on the property is Main Street, MS 15, 15 representing the maximum lot coverage on the site. The MS 15 zoning is being proposed to be maintained with some site-specific modifications. So these modifications are to permit the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital Foundation office use, to bring into conformity the existing buildings and structures on the site to the zoning bylaw, and bring into conformity the driveway, aisle, and parking spaces and garage to the zoning bylaw. A reduction in parking to 3 spaces is also requested. And just to note, the proposed office would only apply to the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital Foundation office. Any other proposed office space in the future would be subject to another planning application, such as another zoning bylaw amendment. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Adam. Next, we have Diana Morris. Diana, welcome.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Oh, great. Perfect. Mr. Todd, do you have a copy of my presentation? If not, I'd be happy to share my screen.
Yeah. Yes, Diana, if you'd share your
Okay.
screen, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Oops. Sorry, can everyone see that okay? Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Adam, for your staff presentation. Good evening, Mayor, Council, town staff, and the public.
Diana, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
That's just, it's showing the presenter view. It might just be the wrong screen.
Sorry, bear with me. No. Sorry about that. Does that fix it?
Yes, that looks better.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. Thank you, Adam, for your presentation. Good evening, Mayor, Council, town staff, and the public. My name is Diana Morris, Senior Planner at T. Johns Consulting Group, agent on behalf of West Lincoln Memorial Hospital Foundation for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application for their property located at 174 Main Street East. The subject lands are located on the south side of Main Street East, east of Governor's Road, and west of Walker Court. The property has an approximate area of 0.22 hectares, or 0.55 acres, with 24.3 meters of frontage on Main Street. The lands currently occupy a single detached dwelling and a detached garage, which are presently vacant. The neighborhood is predominantly residential, with various commercial and institutional uses along Main Street East. The existing West Lincoln Memorial Hospital is located directly north of the subject lands at 169 Main Street East. The property is an existing residential lot with 1 vacant single detached dwelling and 1 detached garage, owned by West Lincoln Memorial Hospital Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization which works with the community to help raise funds for the hospital and whose offices are currently located within the building. As you are aware, the hospital has submitted a site plan application to the town for the development of a 4-story building for an additional 54 beds. Construction is anticipated to begin spring or summer of this year. To accommodate the construction of the new building, the foundation bought the existing lot at 174 Main Street East with the intent of using it as an office use for the foundation's full-time employees. The proposed will use the existing dwelling for an office and maintain the existing parking provided on site, which includes 1 in the driveway and 2 in the detached garage to the rear of the property. No changes to the dwelling or site are proposed. A street presence for the foundation is crucial to its success and provides greater exposure to donors, patrons, and supporters of the hospital. The subject land is designated low-density residential area. The proposed office use for the hospital foundation is considered a community facility, which is a permitted use within this designation. The redevelopment proposes the adaptive reuse of the existing 1.5-story single detached dwelling for the office use for foundation staff. Again, no site or building alterations are proposed, which respects the character and the streetscape of the existing neighborhood. The Town of Grimsby zoning bylaws zones the land's Main Street MS.15 zone. An office is not permitted within this zone, and therefore a site-specific Main Street zone is proposed to allow the office use, specifically for foundation staff. The proposed use is restrictive in nature to ensure that the Main Street zone is maintained. As there will be 3.5 full-time employees that will be using the dwelling as an office, and since the built form is not changing, the existing 3 parking spaces on the site are sufficient for the proposed use and number of employees. The existing driveway is accessible and easy to navigate with an appropriate site turnaround, and sight lines will be maintained to ensure traffic and road safety is implemented. Thank you for your time this evening and for listening to my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Diana. Up next on our list, we have Kevin Antonides. Good evening, Kevin.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I put myself on the list as a delegate, but I didn't really have a formal presentation. It was more to ensure that the foundation was represented if we had any questions regarding the application. We had attended the public meeting previously, or the open house. So I don't really have a formal presentation. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer if it's not planning related. Otherwise, I'd defer to Diana or staff.
Great, thank you, Kevin. Questions or comments from council? Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I asked this, Kevin, and at the last meeting that we had. The foundation serves a hospital function in the community, and it was previously in the Alexander Globe building, which was a fully accessible building. It's now moved into a home that is not accessible. I asked about how you're going to meet the needs of any community members who come to the foundation office that have accessible requirements, and I don't see any changes in the plan. I don't see anything to make the office use accessible, and I just have a real concern with that, because I think that being such a visible like hospital use, and that there's a need there to serve all of the community. So I would like to see this come back with some way to have accommodations for accessible parking, at least one spot, and accessibility into the building as well for someone who may want to come in that has a visual impairment or whatever, or a physical impairment that needs to get in, that wants to make some contribution or donation or have some questions answered. So I really feel that you need to be a front leader on accessibility, considering the hospital's position in the community and just what it's representing. I just think it's really important that everyone have an opportunity to be able to access your facility. And being an office use, I think we've held the other buildings on Main Street to a high standard as well. There's a couple other renovations, slight changes of uses, just down from there on the other side of the street. And I think I'm remembering the Golfy building, and there's another one next, just down there, that were homes that were renovated for office uses, that had to conform to accessible requirements for parking and for access. So that's my main concern. And then that reduction in parking from 8 required spaces to 3. I mean, if there was accessible parking, I might consider that. But at this point, I think we're only having one in the driveway. And I don't think we're meeting the needs there. If the potential is that there's a board meeting and there's multiple people, I know you've mentioned they could park off site. But if it's raining and they just want to be close to the building, I can see them all going into your roundabout there, and then a potential fire route issue coming up. So I think it just needs to be worked out a little bit better when it comes back to council. Those are my main. Oh, one other quick question for staff: if the change of use is now community facility office use as a nonprofit, will the property be tax exempt? And again, I think I asked if this is going to be a permanent use on the property, and that might be for Kevin. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Councillor Botham, we are looking at accessibility. That is obviously a priority of ours, given the nature of our use and so on. So we're looking at 2 options. One is the front porch, modifying that, or the back entrance, which is now the kitchen, but there's some sliding doors and there's a wooden deck there. So we are cognizant of that need, and we'll be addressing that. But that to us was more a building permit issue rather than the zoning. We wanted to get through the zoning change first to make sure that was approved before we start looking at specific drawings with respect to an entrance. So yes, we are looking at that. And yes, we have 2 options. With respect to the parking, I think if you've been in the site, you know how much is actually available. It's a long, wide driveway. There's a curved or roundabout, if you want to call it, plus an extension back to the garage. So we feel there's more than adequate. Even though there's 3 legal spaces by definition, there's certainly more than enough room. And if it means modifying, depends on where we locate the ramp. If it's at the back, we may widen that back section right behind where the deck is now, or add something there, or add something to the circle at the front, depending on, I'm not sure we want to change the front with a ramp. I'm not going to call it an ugly ramp, but so the back might be a better option for us, but we are certainly looking at that. With respect to the exemption, yes, we're a nonprofit, rely on donors' money for our funds and the office, running the office. So we have applied to MPAC for tax exempt status as well on the use. So does that answer your question? I don't know if you had another one in there.
Oh, that's great. I just think that this is the opportunity to get the parking ironed out, not at site plan or not later. So if we approve it now, it basically is saying you can have 3, and we have there's no requirement for accessible parking. So I think. Yeah,
and it wouldn't be, for us, it wouldn't be not meeting the requirements. We realize who our patrons are. We want to serve them. So it's something we are looking at. We wouldn't, just because it's not required legally, we wouldn't slough it off and ignore it. We want to have that capability. So it's just which option works better for us, the front or the back.
Maybe, Walter, this is then for you. If it comes back in a report from staff, I would like it to be considered that there is only 1 space provided in the drive and 2 in the garage. I would like to suggest that staff make a condition that 1 accessible parking spot be provided either at the rear or the front of the building, in addition to the 1 parking space that's outside of the garage. So that would just be a minimum. That would just be my ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, again, I think I mentioned it previously at the open house, but I think there's a comfortable room for 6 parking spaces the way it's laid out now, with each space being separately accessible and or maneuverable without having to move cars around. So I think there's 6 spaces available now. Yes, and again, the provision of an accessible space in the meaning of the Accessibility Act is also something that would be appropriate.
Well, that's my main concern. It's not just accessible under the Act. There's 1 marked, signed, and designated under the Act. So that would be what I would say would be a requirement. I would ask if that could be considered as a requirement in the zoning bylaw amendment. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or comments, thank you for everyone's participation this evening in the public meeting. The consultants and staff will take back the feedback. Please contact staff at planning@grimsby.ca if you have any additional comments or questions about the proposal after this meeting. The public meeting is now closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.